Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Ryan.
How are you?
I'm okay. I'm making my way home.
Really? Well, Rachel, I've had this image of you lately in my mind of you blowing on a daffodil and all of the dandelion, and all of
the
it,
seeds?
and the seeds spreading out everywhere like my cum, and and that's why we're the Yum Yum podcast, because we're the only Star Trek rewatch podcast brave enough to mention cum within the first 15 seconds. Rachel, we're here rewatching Star Trek Discovery episode by episode. We're in season 3, which is a relatively fresh season for us. We are Yum Yum, obviously, because Yum Yum, the most iconic line of dialogue said by the character Commander Nan, who was mysteriously absent from the episode we're going to be discussing today.
A lot of characters were
scratching my head going, where's the security chief during the bit in which the ship's security was breached by foreign invaders?
Where was Hugh?
Oh, don't. Oh, you. Where was Tig Notaro? But, Rachel, we're rewatching Star Trek Discovery.
Maybe. No, wait. I'll save it for the Hugh Dar.
Save it for amazing Hugh Dar. So we're rewatching the show. We are up to season 3, episode 3 of
which
season 3.
Which is entitled People of Earth, originally aired October 29th of 2020.
Thank you.
Finally reunited, Burnham and the USS Discovery crew journey to Earth, eager to learn what has happened to the Federation in their absence. And do you remember what the rating is?
None of them go above a 7.3, so it's lower than that.
Do you want to guess?
7.
7.2 is the average user rating score on IMDb.
So, we watched this episode, Rachel, today. We watched it, obviously, when it first came out. We are not fans of season 3. You have said in previous episodes that you like season 3 a lot more than season 2. I have said that season 3 is my least favorite of Star Trek Discovery. I find it annoying and boring. Last episode, we talked about the Far From Home, and we both agreed with our guest, who had seen it for the first ever time, that it was a really great episode, really fun, and it had all of these mechanics that worked within the Star Trek Discovery landscape. And it was still a coherent, fun, enjoyable episode, even for cold, bitter-hearted people like ourselves who have issues with Star Trek Discovery, even for someone like myself who does not like the season we are covering of Star Trek Discovery. I made a joke at the end of that episode that maybe this episode, since it's an odd-numbered one, would be fucking terrible, and then the even-numbered episodes would be good because we didn't like the first episode, and it was a reference to the fact that the movies, the old the Star Trek movies, every odd-numbered one is apparently bad. That was a joke. Having to rewatch it, I think I was right. This one sucked.
Pissed off some scary people.
You helped.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here we can piss off?
Do you remember what your thoughts were of this episode when we initially saw it?
I remember it feeling excruciating.
Oh. Oh.
Oh.
But Rachel, cake is eternal.
Cake is eternal.
We're friends.
Yeah, friend in the truest sense of the word.
Luckily, I'm not alone on this journey. I found a friend in the truest sense of the word.
So, Rachel, you found it excruciating the first time.
Yes,
Why?
Because of the pacing.
What pacing?
A fundamental issue that I have with this episode is where do I start?
Yeah, where do you start? The pacing. You were saying you didn't enjoy the pacing the first time. Was it too slow? Was it too fast? What was it?
This episode doesn't have a full plot. It has the idea that is meant to be the plot that you think the episode would be about, but it does not adhere in any way to a 5-act structure that you would expect from a TV show. Before you interrupt, so we don't have that. So we kind of just have a beginning and a middle of one story, and then it's completely dropped, and then we get the beginning, middle, and end of the Raiders story, and then we get more middle from the first story, but then that has also introduced a third subplot.
You're confusing me, Rachel.
I'm sure that this I will put up a diagram.
We'll put up a diagram. Rachel, just say you didn't like the episode the first time. It was excruciating. You found the pace...
I was trying to be more specific, Ryan.
But what was... You said you had a problem with the pacing, and you're saying the structure of the episode
yes,
now.
Because
the structure of the stories affected the pacing of the episode.
What I was trying to say by that is because that there is no distinct through line for the whole episode, the pacing feels very off, which make things feel like their importance has been exaggerated and they're padding for time, but also they think things are important, which makes the experience of watching those scenes excruciating because it's slow but too fast, but nothing's happening, but everything's being told to us all at the same time. And that was what I was trying to explain, because that for me is like, you need to say that it's a pacing issue for it to make sense. But it's the whole episode is garbage is what I'm really trying to say. But I think I just didn't feel comfortable saying
it straight off the bat like I did.
Yeah, I felt like
you would have a preamble.
I needed to pad out the discussion a little bit more.
So, in my vague recollections of this episode, because a lot of season 3 bounced off my brain because I found it boring beyond belief, this episode there was a little phrase in my brain that kept popping up. And I kept dismissing it for some reason. Like, you know when you have that, where your brain is reminding you of something and you're like, no, that doesn't sound right. And you push it away and then it comes, and then you experience a thing and the brain was like, remember that thing I said all this time you pushed away? You were right. The phrase I had was after school special. I remember thinking that this felt like an after school special edition of Star Trek. And that kept popping in my brain over the amount of time in which we were going over these episodes, and it was like, People of Earth, after school special. And I was like, why am I thinking that? And I rewatched the episode today, and boy, that's really how it felt to me. This felt like a lot of talking down to the audience like they're small children who don't know that they shouldn't talk to strangers, or that they don't know that drugs are bad. Did you know that you shouldn't shoot your neighbors with your spaceships, guys?
Perhaps it is time to stop making assumptions and start listening.
I hated this episode so much watching it after this season has finished up, and coming back and rewatching it, and especially after the previous one we just covered, because that episode was the exact opposite. Everything we praised in that episode is non-existent here. Everything we were dismissive about in the first episode of this season is here times 10, and a numerous amount of other issues we've had with Star Trek Discovery is also here. I am struggling to even figure out where we start, because this is my main problem. Every single line of dialogue in this episode is either corny...
You are a slow learner, Saru.
And you are far too fast on the trigger.
exposition.
I'm not sure you ever knew who you really were without someone else to tell you, but you're starting to. And this place no longer feels like your place.
Or just writers being writers. So what I mean by that is, they don't sound like characters, they sound like the writers waxing poetically, and the characters are just spouting off what the writers are saying. They don't feel like, oh, that's something Tilly would say, or that's something Michael would say. It is the writers using these characters to let us, the audience, know this is the theme of the episode, or this is the character's flaw this season, or this is the character's interiority right now. They don't sound like people. They don't sound like the characters even from this existing show. As much as we've had issues with the characters, you can tell when they don't sound like themselves, even if you don't like them. I don't like Tilly, but there were so many lines of dialogue in this episode where I said, that's not what Tilly would say. This is the writer just hijacking her for a scene and making her say stuff so that us, the audience, knows information, because that's all this episode is it's dispensing platitudes, themes, information, but it's not conveying it in a natural, organic way with characters and story and plot. It is as if you got a speech-to-text program, a text-to-speech program, and just got the plot synopsis of this episode to read it out at you. There's no life in the People of Earth episode. This is one of the more embarrassing entries of Star Trek Discovery that we've had to encounter. Before we even started, Rachel, I should cut my tongue out for saying this. I said to you, and you looked at me with shock, fuck, at least Light and Shadows had some plot. And Light and Shadows, it was my least favorite episode from last season, and because I said it had no plot. So what does that say about this one? Oh my God.
I will trust you to grow through change, as you have trusted me.
I think it's trash. And that is about it. That's where I'm at with it. It's just everything felt dumb. Like really, really fucking dumb.
A science vessel's practically a museum. Okay, well, museums are cool, so that's what someone who lives in a museum would say. You live in a museum.
It became even more apparent to me that was a frustration that I was having with this episode. When Stamets starts talking to Adira, and the tone that he uses of
with the music
I
as well.
am talking to a child, and I am being like clear with all of my words and enunciating, but being friendly, but also a little bit stern. And I'm like,
yeah, in a scene that I don't understand why he's speaking to this person and giving them all of this information. It's odd in the moment context. We know why in the longer run of the show.
And why does he draw the line where he does? That is also something that I didn't understand on the first viewing, and I did not understand this time either.
So let's start from the beginning of the episode. That's the easiest way to start from this. I stated last episode that there should have been a magical third or second episode that does not exist in this show, in this season, of Michael and Book's life, that they lived together doing the mercenary stuff and the bounty hunting and the courier stuff, to give an insight to us, the audience, what the world looks like, but more importantly, what Michael's journey and shift is. To see her change and adapt and grow and accept the loss of her friends and the Starship Discovery.
Yeah, like that makes sense.
We should have had a whole episode of this. I completely forgot until watching this episode why that stuck in my brain so much, because in this episode, I looked at it on the timer, 22 minutes it takes for them to get to Earth and for the Earth plot to happen and to have the raiders and the tension of the episode. The first 20 to 22 minutes is Michael and Book and Tilly and Saru and all these characters interacting with Michael and having her just out loud explain her life that she had. And if she's not doing it to them, she's monologuing to us, the audience, about all these legendary things that happened to her.
I've become a courier. I transport goods in exchange for dilithium to keep exploring sector by sector, searching for clues as to what caused the burn. Answers that might help to bring the Federation together again.
It is the most egregious example of breaking the rule of show, don't tell. They should have given us an actual episode in which they showed us her change. This episode, though, they spend half of it not having a plot of any kind, half of it telling us that Michael has changed. And everyone around her says, Michael, you have changed.
Look, I may not know you, but I know you. Okay, so whatever. I love your hair.
Thank you.
You do seem lighter somehow.
Why spend half an episode just saying what happened? If you're going to spend half an episode doing that, why not just spend a whole episode showing us?
I don't know why they didn't decide to do that. I honestly don't know. I don't know why they went, you know what, this will make a great season.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have this opening monologue that details Michael's year away and
A singular year.
And how this has changed. Did she get extensions? Does hair grow faster in the future? We will never get answers.
There were 2 or 3 separate times in which Michael kept stating, and I can't help but roll my eyes, Saru or Tilly, it's been a year. It's been a year, and I've adapted. And you guys are back, and I let you go. And to be able to be part of this crew again, I need time. I need time. She was gone for 1 year, you know? It's too short of a period of time.
Oh,
and if they showed us in an episode, a whole episode, what she experienced in that year, then I could buy into the short time period more because we actually experienced her change as an audience. But without that, you're just having her go, it's been a year and I let you guys go. It kind of shows that it kind of shows how detached and uncaring she was about these people that she threw into the future in the first place. We've been in the pandemic for a year, Rachel, and I can't, and that's a life, I can't relate to her, even though I'm in an experience similar to her right now in the real world. It's insane.
But there are things in my year here that I let go of. And I need time to find my way back to them. If I can.
The analogy that I'm going to go with is it kind of feels like when you have a friend that does a year exchange and they come back and they're like, oh my God, it was life-changing. It was so amazing.
I had a French lover there.
All of that kind of shit. And it's just like, in those stories, even when you were the friend that was left behind, you kind of wish you were the person that got to go on that trip.
Yeah.
But this episode of Star Trek Discovery, you're the people who just have to stay at school, do their normal shit, and just get it, kind of rubbed in their face when the person returns, oh my God, I am, forever changed, but I'm still me, guys. I'm still your friend and I still love you. Like, I kind of had to let go because, you know, the time difference made it really hard to stay in contact. But I'm back now.
And while they're telling you this...
And we're going to become best friends all over again.
But you got to give me time to adjust. While this is happening, Rachel, exact same thing, but this is... They've halted class so that they can show you the pictures that they took on their trip.
Oh, yeah, it's the slideshow.
It's a slideshow. This is so... I can't believe... I can't believe this. I can't believe that they did this. Because we've complained so many times about how they say things but don't show things. And it shouldn't be a shock to me. It shouldn't be. Of course this is what they do, but I just can't wrap my brain around the justification that they have for this. They have 13 episodes, and one of the major pivotal points of this season is this year Michael spent away, this period of time in which Michael has now grown to be a new person, but she's still herself. This whole entire season is about her being reluctant to join back into the crew. And they on purposely, it seems, deny us, the audience, to understand our main character's headspace at any point. They don't want us to see her headspace. They just want her to say, guys, I have this mindset now, and I'm supposed to sit there going, oh, well, she did have a year away, so I guess I just have to take her word, aka the writer's word. There's no impact to it. And I think this could have been something that would work for the season, of having her land earlier and having her experience this life and having her be reluctant to get into the chair, and then at the end of the season, spoiler alert, she gets in the chair. I could see that working, but it doesn't for me, especially in this episode where they spend half the episode telling you instead of actually giving you moments and actual scenes, telling you that, oh, she's changed. Show us it. Give us a fucking episode in which it was that. So that fucking opening monologue, I said to you, Rachel, that opening monologue, that should have been a whole episode in itself. It's inexcusable.
Or even, completely uproot the structure of the season and have the first half be her landing, her getting used to it, her going through the process of becoming a courier, trying to gain the network's trust enough, her waiting and maybe giving up hope when she sent the message to Taralisian.
Yeah.
The idea, exploring this new world and this new future and how far these principles have fallen
or how they've changed.
And interacting with people like Cal, who I idolize Starfleet and the Federation, but are so disconnected from it that it doesn't feel like even a tangible hope. It's something even more ethereal than hope.
Yeah.
That could be that, and then back half do Discovery landing.
Yeah.
And them not being able to find Michael, and because Michael's given up looking. And then Michael's on a courier mission and bumps up against Discovery, and she actually has a clear conflict of interest. Do I follow through and side with Book and possibly get the entire Emerald chain already going against Discovery because they've fucked up my courier route?
Yeah.
Or do I follow through and abandon my principles so that I'm giving them a chance to be okay in the future for a little bit longer? That could have been interesting, right?
Anything could have been interesting.
Anything. Yeah.
Actually have a thing happen. Don't just say it. Ages back, I made a joke about how if you just say things to the audience and just say things out loud and declare it with enough passion, that isn't a substitution for the actual experience of seeing that thing happen. I said, oh, if I came on this podcast and said to everyone, hey, if you disagree with my opinions, that's invalid because I saved a baby just before recording this podcast. And since I saved a baby, doesn't that change everything? No, just because I say that doesn't mean anything to you as a listener, right? You may go, oh, I love babies and he's good because he saved a baby, but I'm not giving you context of any kind. I'm not telling you an actual story. I'm not enveloping you in the situation to understand why me saving a baby should change your perspective about myself. If you do not like me, just me saying I saved a baby isn't enough to make you like me. If I use that as a reason to make you like me, I need to actually tell you a story to get you to understand why me saving a baby is so grand enough for you to be on my side. This whole episode is that idea of they just said, hey, Michael's different. Hey, Ryan saved a baby before recording the podcast. You should care.
Even if I did find you, I know it would be different. Because I am different. But I will always love you. I've had to accept I may never see you again. You can love someone and still let them go.
Obviously, we don't have the fierce, die-hard investment in Star Trek Discovery like many other people do.
That's fair to say.
We do have investment.
Yes.
Not just because of this podcast, but because we want to try and decipher what this is. But we don't have the fierce, die-hard investment that other people do.
Mm-hmm.
I have to ask, with an episode like this, though, from our perspective, why bother investing in anything Star Trek Discovery does if they don't want to fulfill it? Because in this episode, they explain away, in a line of dialogue that's so quick fire that you could miss it, that Michael contacted Terra Elysium and they don't know anything about it, and that's the end of the Terra Elysium plot. We're never going to see it again. That was a big plot point from Season 2 that was a seed to be grown in this season. But just like with the spore drive, just like with the sphere data, just like with the computer coming alive later.
But no.
What do you think of that statement? People get invested in this, and yet it does not follow through on the stuff that they promise. What's the point of getting invested in this?
Here is what I'm going to say. I'm going to go with another metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek Discovery is a charlatan.
It's not the Winter Olympics?
Not this time. No.
It's not a slip and slide?
No, not this time. For this particular instance, it's a charlatan. And it brings up these shiny things. And the charlatan's saying, oh, look here. Look at this. Ooh,
look at this mystery box.
Here. And when you look at it, you're like, there's nothing special about that. There's nothing special about that. And then it goes, oh, it's here and here and here and here. And oh, look. That didn't go where you wanted it to go.
Or anywhere.
And, oh, like Terra Elysium was this shiny bauble. But
we took it away.
And you know what's the cup? Michael's mom, who does come back.
I struggle because obviously my anger and bias and hatred towards the show has exponentially grown with this episode, but I
feel like mine's more compounded. Like the weight of my dislike for this show is just getting heavier and deeper with each episode.
But there have been shows that I have enjoyed But when they don't fulfill the promises and the expectations and the investment I put into them, I can still recognize that that was a betrayal and a failure. Many people went through this with the modern Star Wars sequel trilogy, and I'm feeling the same here, where it's just like, for people who love this show, why do you invest in it when it doesn't want to fulfill any of the things that you invest in it? Like any of the
by
big...
the time that it gets to that point, you don't care anymore.
Then what's the
all
point?
Of these other things... Well, we're done with Terra Elysium because the burn's here now, and the burn is more interesting because it's fresh in people's minds. So it doesn't matter about Terra Elysium. It could be so interesting and such a juicy thematic and emotional arc to see what life is like on Terra Elysium, and if the impacts of Pike speaking to the scientists and
and basically forming a new religion for them.
Forming a new religion, and are there two sects, and how did the burn affect them? Because did the Amish side
and
become even more Amish?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what they were coded as. Or did it stay kind of the same and
or did
it's
it become
a safe harbor, or was it taken over by the Emerald Chain because it didn't have...
Or did it become a technological wonderland in irony? We can go about this all day, and that's the point I'm making is
it could have been something, but it was nothing. It could have been a contender.
But it isn't.
But you told me to take the dive.
Why is this a serialized story at all? Why isn't this an anthology show like Brian Fuller wanted it to be? At this point, why isn't every season just its own self-contained thing? Because every season, the characters reset and completely change. Like that. Every season, they disregard the things that happened in the previous season, just like that. Every season, they're in a new locale with a new captain and a new redesigned ship of some sort. What is the point of investing in this at all? Because I love investing in these serialized sci-fi opera shows. One of the joys of Deep Space Nine, one of the joys of Babylon 5, one of the joys of Battlestar Galactica is things that you thought weren't going to be important in the earlier seasons become important in later seasons. In Star Trek Discovery, none of it is important because they expect you to forget about it, or they never had a plan to follow through on it because it was just the mystery box. It was, ooh, Terra Elysium, how did people get on there when it's so far away? Ooh, and then that's it. What happened to the Baul? We'll never find out. We'll never find out what happened to the Baul on Kaminar. We'll never find out what happened to all these things that, even within this episode, I was frustrated of, if you have an investment in it from episode to episode, it slaps you in the face because what was Paul doing? What was Paul doing at the end of the last episode?
We just need to see
Answer my
cool
question.
things.
This follows up directly from the last episode. What was Paul doing at the end of the last episode? Do you remember? What was happening to him? What was he doing in that episode? Do you know?
No.
He was fixing things in the Jeffries tubes, and he had just come out of his coma, and he was bleeding profusely from his stomach, remember?
Yeah, but Hugh
hold on.
rescued him,
and
so
Hugh,
that doesn't need
and
to
Hugh
be
had to
followed
take him
up
back
on.
in and be like, you need serious medical examination. And the whole point was, in that previous episode, even though he was doing a good thing, he had pushed himself, and Hugh had to look after him. At the beginning of this episode,
He's fine.
He's completely fine, and
He's
he's good enough to
back in
operate the spore
engineering.
drive again. There's no continuity. There's no investment in
He did
itself.
a couple more rounds in that chamber,
Yeah.
like Hugh said, and now he's fine.
And now he's fine. There's no consequence to anything anymore at all.
There was a strange moment where I thought something interesting was going to happen, and then it wasn't. Which was when Stamets is saying, explaining the spore drive, and he says they power an alternative form of faster than light travel called the displacement activated spore hub drive.
But nobody
though
calls it that.
nobody actually calls it that. When he started saying that, I thought that was going to be the reveal of like that's an why Discovery is called Discovery is because that's the acronym for the spore drive.
No.
And then that was going to be an interesting like double layering of like discovery because they're discovering, but also because they're on the backs of this specific technology. And then that was going to link back in with the fact that it was developed during the Klingon War, so they needed a code name, and that they like spaced it out to be Discovery. But no. I
got a question.
Yeah?
We've seen the season, so we know what the spectacular nature of it is.
Oh, you mean how they completely and utterly forgive Su'Kal for killing millions of people?
Hey, Detmer shed a tear over it, so those lives have been remembered fondly now. No, I was going to say...
There are comm badges on a wall.
Yeah.
We've moved on.
We've watched the season, so we know all the spectacular heights that are going to be reached, but I really want to know, is this the cheapest season of Discovery budget-wise? Because in an episode like this, there were moments in which, for instance, Michael and Book have these elaborate things happen completely off-screen. Things that need to happen on screen. They get the raiders, they figure out what the raiders are, they get them, steal the raiders off a ship. All of this happens off screen, and there were several moments in the last 2 episodes, and in this one, where things just that should be happening don't happen on screen. And I wonder, is it a budgetary constraint in any way? Because you go down to Earth, you see very little of it, of course, and what you do see is badly rendered CGI, even for Discovery standards, which usually looks like a fucking movie. The CGI tree. Do you think it is budgetary limitations, or do you think it is they have become lazy in the script writing? Because I'm on the side where I wonder if it's a budget thing.
I don't know.
Because why don't we get to see what Michael and Book get up to in this episode? There's no reason for it. You need that to happen in the episode. They literally solve the crisis of the episode off screen.
Okay. So I think it is a mix of budget constraints and active choices, because I think that they're still trying to figure out a way to pace out their CG.
Oh, yeah.
As well.
But they use it all the time.
They use it all of the fucking time. But they've cut down the lengths of the shots, so we don't get as many extravagant CG scenes.
Yeah.
We get weird moments where it's like, why is this here?
Like, here's a shot of some dot robots floating about.
Yeah, like, we've got to zoom in through a window, of course. And one thing that was there and pissed me off was, like, they're orbiting Earth, and then, like, out the window there is, like, this nebula.
Yeah, you know how Earth has just a nebula right next to it? You know when you're floating over Earth? You know how when you're looking up at the night sky, you see a big fucking nebula right next to Earth's moon? Yeah, you know, like you fucking do. You know how Earth just has a giant nebula next to it?
'Cause that's space. Couldn't just be black.
Couldn't be the moon.
No, that's too boring, Ryan. We need space, and space looks like nebulous.
You know, yes, there's a tremendous amount of time and effort and, frankly, love put into all the CG work on the show. That is not where we start. The CG work on the show is there to support the emotional story, period.
This episode introduces what Earth looks like in the future, what it has become.
Big tree.
Oh, you're talking about what's on the ground, but I'm talking about the society. They set it up that Earth is like this extreme militaristic isolationist nation, world civilization. And is that a bad thing? When you watch the episode, at the end of it, is it a bad thing? Yes or no? Where do you think it falls on it? Good or bad? Is it good that they are not a part of the Federation anymore, or is it bad that they are by themselves, isolated and hoarding?
I think it's very logical. I don't deem them evil or bad for that decision. I do think that they've gone a little bit too far with the protocols, because obviously they didn't they didn't do the same response that they did with Discovery with the first ship sent from Titan, because they just
shot it.
They didn't board it. And if they bothered to board it, none of this would have happened.
Or if they bothered
necessarily.
to talk to one another. You see, that's the after school special. See, guys, you gotta talk before you shoot your guns. See, Saru kept saying throughout the episode, Starfleet doesn't shoot first. We talk our way through problems.
But
hello, I'm Mr. Saru.
Diplomacy is slow.
Ugh. Earth, why I ask this is, obviously it's supposed to be bad. Obviously, it's supposed to be, look how Earth has strayed.
We are meant to be disappointed that
Earth has become this. But with what we're given and what we've seen, and what we will see of the future world,
yes,
Earth is completely right.
Yes,
the Federation has fallen apart. They're getting no support. When the Federation was on Earth, they were getting bombarded and attacked by other races and other powers, probably the Star of the Emerald Chain. So, of course, Earth needs to look after itself. But this is framed like it's a bad thing. They shot first, they're militaristic, but here's where I don't get where they don't follow all the steps. You go down to Earth, and it looks great. Everyone seems...
Because they say that they managed to rebuild Earth despite all of that. So Earth itself is fine.
But
it's
they're
just
also
fucked
struggling.
over everybody
But you
else.
need to be shown that their isolationist, militaristic ways
But it worked out for them.
are bad and have consequences.
It worked out for the people on Earth.
Yeah, so it does.
But it didn't work out for humanity.
How so?
Well, a bunch of humans got fucked over. The guys on Titan.
Yeah.
But that was an unforeseen circumstance.
And how did they react? They decided, we won't communicate, we'll pretend to be alien raiders.
No, that was after they got shut down. They were like, okay, well, if you're going to shoot us, we're
going to pretend to be alien raiders and steal dilithium. My point is, you go down to Earth, and it's this utopia wonderland, and it kind of accidentally reinforces that totalitarian military martial law-esque rule is great.
Oh, Ryan, there we go again, thinking about the implicit messages of Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah, silly us.
Silly us. We're thinking layers down.
But you see,
with background information.
But you're bringing up a point.
And with implications, and we're just ruining the show for ourselves.
But you bring up the point. You see, Earth's isolationist ways was good for Earth, but not good for humanity because it affected the colony on Titan. And what happened to Mars? Are they fine?
What happened to the colonies on the moon?
What happened to the moon?
What happened to the moon?
What happened to any of the other Earth colonies? We never get to find out because it's inconvenient.
What's the planatia like now on Mars?
Yeah.
Us since back there?
No.
Since the only ones there?
The Titan thing is so bizarre to me as well because they have long-range sensors but they say that they don't have long-range communication, yet you see throughout the episode that they do, because they can transmit.
Now.
And yet at no point did they
not
think...
when things
They never
went
thought
wrong.
to phone Earth?
No, because they knocked on Earth's door and got murdered for it.
And then, Rachel, here's my question.
So they're going to break in instead of knocking.
And here's my question. Why do they want to talk at the end, then? What changes their mind? Nothing. If anything, what
Because
changes their
Earth
mind?
says, oh, our bad. We didn't know it was you.
So?
We wouldn't have shot at you if we knew it was humans. So
Here's another question that you don't want to think about. How did they not know it was them in the first place? Because they know that the Discovery ship is a Discovery ship with this type of metal from this time period made on Earth. How did they not recognize other Earth ships?
And it's not a good enough defense to say, oh, well, this was a while before. Because it's relatively short period of time. Like, not enough for it to be that Earth wasn't capable of scanning for these things when the Titan ship arrives, but they are for Discovery.
You know
That's not a good enough explanation for me, and that's the only thing that I can think of that might be able to patch that.
Rachel, and not to be disrespectful, but as you were saying all this, and I was listening and reflecting upon what I said beforehand, I realized, why are we even talking about it like this? Because the episode doesn't even want to engage this as an idea. This could have been the whole episode. How did Earth fuck up like this? What was going on? Da-da-da-da-da. Maybe there's more than just Earth shot out of this. Maybe you could further explore that there's negative ramifications to Earth's militaristic ways now. But instead, it's shown as, it was a whoopsie accident, we said sorry, and now Earth is better. Because the military force never gets dismantled in this. It's proved to be really effective, actually, and it's pretty cool that the Earth people have a very fascist-like look to them, and they just board things, and they demand things, and then at the end, they're told, hey, sit down and talk, you know? It's an after-school special, that will sort it.
Perhaps it is time to stop making assumptions and start listening.
Hudar time! It's the Hudar time. Do you want to hear a great fun fact, Rachel?
You forgot Hugh existed for this episode?
No, I didn't forget that he existed in this episode. Even better, until you stated that he wasn't in the episode, I assumed he was, because everyone else was, so I assumed, why wouldn't Hugh be in this episode in some way, shape, or form?
Why wasn't Hugh on the transporter bay with everybody else where we
Where
got
was
the
he?
slow-mo hugs?
Hey guys, we resurrected this character just so that we could do the same shit with him we did in season 1, which is just not have him in the show. No joke, I didn't realize until we started talking and you mentioned that he wasn't here, Other episodes I forgot that he existed, but this one was, I assumed he was here, and I was going to just wing the conversation, being like, oh yeah, so that scene with Hugh, and then be like, figure it out from there. But he's not in the episode. What a great character, huh? There's another one. Why get invested in Hugh as a character at all? They just change him whenever they want. He doesn't have any consistency.
Ryan, you're just being such a nihilist.
Yeah. You could say that during that year where we spent nihilism classes, I picked up a thing or two, Rachel.
Well, yeah, it's your fault for choosing to do the philosophy course instead of the mandatory mechanics workshop.
Rachel, as much as I picked up from nihilism school, the nihilistic viewpoints I've got here, it was all undone when I saved that baby. But that's a story for another time.
The story for right now is our ratings. It's a yum from me.
Yum.
It's a yum.
Yum.
I despised this episode. All of the lines, all of them were bad. Everyone was terrible in this. I do not think there was a redeeming moment in this episode.
And just in case you want some space to insert some honorable mentions of lines that we didn't quote yet, but are truly atrocious to us.
Yeah, here's some.
Feels like a dream, this world. A strange, terrible, beautiful dream.
In another world, I might have said Michael is somewhere being earnest and doing the right thing. In this one, I'm not so sure.
Remember that time when I had to wade through that bog on Castle to pull those leeches off you?
Yes, when we saved each other.
Nope, I saved you. And this is worse than the bog. How many times have I told you?
She's a queen.
Okay, we get it. You're smart. Everybody here is smart.
Here I am trying to get a buzz on and reach a place of existential despair.
I knew that Tween Menace was up to something. And she did this while we were yelling
She's
at
not
her.
even a teen menace. She's a freaking teen genius. I mean, I was an engineering whiz when I was her age, trust me. How do you get a teen genius to fess up? Give her some of your weird mushrooms.
Who are you?
Have you heard the one about the unstoppable force that met an immovable object? You are the object.
Perhaps it is time to stop making assumptions and start listening.
What is next week's episode? Hopefully, my ideology of every even-numbered episode of the show is good will fulfill itself. Maybe the next episode will pick up the torch that was dropped on the ground from this one. Maybe season 3 isn't completely lost to us.
Well, Hugh's in it at least.
Huzzah!
Forget Me Not is the title of the next episode.
Oh, I forgot it, alright.
Burnham and Adira visit the Trill homeworld while Saru's efforts on discovery to help reconnect yield surprises.
That's right. That's the dinner episode.
It's the dinner
Remember
episode.
that Detmer's having PTSD? You could tell in this episode because she yelled a little bit. That's great representation,
I
guys.
scrolled down a little bit and the first user review is...
Yeah, they're always great.
The first line of it is, "This episode stinks."
Yep.
That's all of the sentence.
But maybe
Just,
they're
"This
wrong,
episode
and
stinks."
maybe it will defy our expectations.
There's pools. It can't be that bad if there's pools.
I thought you said there's poos, and I'm like, well, it can't be that bad. There's poos. A pleasure talking with you, Rachel, even with an episode that left us bitter on the inside and out, evidently. People out there may not believe it, but we honestly do try not to be as angry and annoyed and as disgusted as we were in this episode, and we were trying to restrain it, and we failed, but for what it's worth, we do try to be coherent and not break down, but this episode was a joyless experience. The episode People of Earth, absolutely joyless. Where can people find us on the internet to let us know their questions, queries, and thoughts and concerns about things we've said? What social medias can they follow us on to let us know, hey guys, People of Earth was actually Yum Yum. You're a bunch of hack frauds.
They can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, Reddit. And if they want to be super direct, they can send us an email at yumyumpod@gmail.com.
And we have our Patreon, in which we talk about things we like. We talk about other Star Trek series. We talk about the movies. All of that stuff is in the description of this episode. Just look up YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast on all of those things, and you shall find it. Rate and review us on whatever podcast hosting platform you use that allows it. It is always something that makes us happy on the inside and outside to hear you give us a review and we read it and we just wet our pants with cum.